Hello there. It's that time again. We're back in the book of Genesis, beginning chapter 19 this week. As we enter into this part of the book of Genesis, we see Abraham has seen his visitors off on their mission to investigate Sodom. The outcome of this investigation is a foregone conclusion. The reputation of Sodom certainly precedes it. It is almost a matter of the Lord trying to show Abraham his justice and using Sodom and Gomorrah as the place where that will happen. They will be judged for their sins. The people of Sodom and Gomorrah have given themselves to an extremely wicked lifestyle. And in the midst of this, though, there is something that is going to cause an issue, and that is the presence of Lot, Abraham's nephew. Lot fears the Lord, we know that, but Lot's presence in the city of Sodom is going to cause a problem. He shouldn't be there. Let's just be honest with that from the beginning. Lot should not be in the city of Sodom, but that's where he is. And so let me read to you from the book of Genesis, beginning at verse 1 of chapter 19, down through about verse 11 is where we'll go. The two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed himself with his face to the earth and said, "My lords, please turn aside to your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise up early and go on your way." They said, "No, we will spend the night in the town square." But he pressed them strongly, so they turned aside to him and entered his house. And he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man, surrounded the house, and they called to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may know them." Lot went out to the men at the entrance, shut the door after him, and said, "I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Behold, I have two daughters who have not known any man. Let me bring them out to you, and do to them as you please. Only do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof." But they said, "Stand back." And they said, "This fellow came to sojourn, and he has become the judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them." Then they pressed hard against the man Lot and drew near to break the door down. But the men reached out their hands and brought Lot into the house with them and shut the door. And they struck with blindness the men who were at the entrance of the house, both small and great, so that they wore themselves out groping for the door. Father, as we pause here, as always, we ask you to help us as we look into your word. This is a difficult passage. But Lord, the principles are clear, and really the meaning is clear. So, Father, help us today as we look into this to come to grips with the clear meaning and principles that your word shows. That, Lord, we would take it into our own lives today. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen. And so we see these two angels arriving at the gate of Sodom. Now, there's something interesting to note here, and that is that the Lord has not accompanied these two angels into Sodom. The Lord was comfortable, obviously, fellowshipping with Abraham and Sarah, but it appears that that may not be the case here with Lot, that the Lord is not so comfortable in his close approach to Lot as he was with Abraham and Sarah. Perhaps what we're seeing here is this very fact that Lot has slipped into a too friendly relationship with the world. And I think we'll see that as we progress into this day. So as the angels approach, sitting at the gate is Lot, Abraham's nephew. Now this indicates a couple of things. First of all, it indicates that Lot was a man of some authority, some position within the city. The gate was where the official business of the city sat, and the magistrates or the city officials would sit there to conduct this business. So Lot in some way has obtained this position. Now, These positions were often unofficial. In other words, it wasn't like they were elected into it, but any man of a certain age could probably take a position within the gate and be considered an official of the city, a magistrate, if you will. But it also indicates that Lot had become friendly with the city, as I mentioned before, and friendly with the people. And even though Lot still feared God, he had made connections with the people of Sodom that perhaps he should not have made. So Lot sees the two angels approaching, knows they're strangers. Lot knows the sins of the city where he lives. He knows what the people are capable of. And so he intercepts these men. And he encourages them to come with him to his own house, where he can show them the proper hospitality, where they will be able to wash their feet, where they will be able to take their rest, and where Lot can provide them with a meal. The angels say, nah, we'll just curl up in our cloaks here in the city square. We'll sleep here tonight. This was not an uncommon practice for travelers. If they didn't want to take the expense of trying to find an inn in which to rest for the evening, they would simply wrap themselves in their cloaks and sleep on the ground in the city square. And in most cities, this would have been relatively safe. City guards would have protected them. The townsfolk would have left them alone. But Lot knows the sins of the people of Sodom. And Lot knows that these men will not be safe in the city square. Lot has become connected to the people and to their sin, not saying that Lot himself was guilty of the sins of the men of Sodom, but certainly he knew that. And he knew what was going to happen if these two angels, who appeared to be men, tried to sleep in the open in the city square that night. So he doesn't openly condemn the actions or the sins of his fellow Sodomites, but he does urge them strongly, it says, to come into Lot's own house. And so finally Lot prevails. The angels acquiesce, and they go with Lot to Lot's house. And Lot provides the hospitality that would be expected of him, what the culture of the day required. Safety in his own home. That was one of those things that if you allowed guests into your home, you took on the responsibility for their safety, for their protection. But he also prepared, it says, a feast. However, let's look at this a little bit, because it says that he baked unleavened bread. He had unleavened bread prepared for them. You have to understand, unleavened bread is the easiest of all to produce. It takes very little time to produce a batch of unleavened bread. All you have to do is mix a little water with flour, maybe add a little salt, mix it up, bake it quickly. It comes out as a flat bread, if you will. It doesn't take much effort to make unleavened bread. There's little evidence of Lot's direct involvement in this feast, in serving his guests, as his uncle Abraham had done. And there's no indication here that Lot hurried in this. And yet, if you go back and you read Abraham's welcoming of the Lord and the angelic messengers with him, Abraham rushed to have his wife prepare breads, and he rushed out to the herdsmen and had them pull out a calf, and he hurried to have the calf prepared, and he urged a sense of urgency upon his own servants to prepare this quickly. And then Abraham stood by and served the meal himself. There's no indication that Lot did all of these things. Now, Lot did not, withhold his hospitality, but there's also no indication that Lot went out of his way overtly to be hospitable. Lot did what should have been done, but there's no indication that Lot did all that could have been done. So again, we see perhaps a lessening of the relationship that Lot should have had with God and could have had with God, and therefore how that affected Lot's own hospitality to these angelic messengers. But at least he does what he should have done. And then before the last lamp can be extinguished and everybody can head off to bed for a night's rest, The men of Sodom surround the house of Lot, both young and old, it says. All the men of the city of Sodom come to Lot's door, and they demand something absolutely evil. Now, there have been some who have, over the years, tried to interpret this, that the sin of Sodom was simply a lack of hospitality. Let's be clear. The sin of Sodom was not a lack of hospitality. The men of Sodom came to the door of Lot's house and demanded that Lot send the men out so that they might know them. And that is clearly a demand that Lot send the men out so that they could be sexually assaulted. Any attempt to minimize or distract from this interpretation of Scripture, I believe, is a false interpretation. The sin of Sodom is clear. It was homosexual activity foisted upon these two innocent messengers of God. It wasn't just a lack of hospitality. The men of Sodom wanted to rape these two men. Now, Lot attempts to dissuade them from such a wicked and heinous act. It's interesting, though, to note that, again, Lot addresses the men of Sodom as brothers. This symbolizes or indicates a sense of companionship and close relationship even. And again, I'm not accusing Lot of being guilty of the same sin as the rest of the men of Sodom. But he certainly seemed to accept the fact that they were the way they were. And his view may be skewed to some degree by his relationship with these men. And in a rush, perhaps, and let's not be too quick to judge Lot in this, because in fact, I have about 4 reasons here why we shouldn't judge Lot overly harshly. But Lot tries to turn away the men from this heinous, wicked, evil act of sexually assaulting these two men by offering something that's a little difficult for us to understand. Lot says, don't do this. He says, I have 2 daughters who have never known a man. They're both virgins. I'll bring them out to you, and you can do whatever you wish to them instead of my guests, because my guests have come under the protection of my roof. And I cannot allow you to violate them in this way. Rather than having the men of Sodom rape these 2 men, Lot is offering to have the men of Sodom rape his 2 daughters. Now, neither of these outcomes seems acceptable. But again, let's consider where Lot is coming from. Not trying to excuse this, but before we get overly judgmental of Lot's offer, let's put ourselves in his shoes for a moment. This was a dangerous situation, and Lot knew it. The entire male population of the city of Sodom was surrounding his house, demanding that these 2 men be delivered into their hands. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that I would consider that a dangerous situation if I had my house surrounded by the entire male population of the city where I live, demanding that I do anything. That's dangerous. So Lot had little time to prepare for this before it happened. Certainly he expected, I think, something evil to be propagated upon him and his guests, but I'm not sure he expected the entire male population of the city to surround his house. So with little time to prepare to defend his guests, he came up with the best plan that he could in the spur of the moment. Lot's response may be more described as panic than a well thought out plan. And certainly all of us can relate to doing something that's absolutely stupid at times when we're in a panic. Second, Lot may have been trying to shock the men of Sodom a little bit. I mean, how shocking would it be to have this man offer his two daughters? I mean, it's horrible enough that all of these men are surrounding the house asking to sexually assault the two guests of Lot, but now Lot comes out and says, no, wait a minute, here, have my daughters instead. So Lot may have intended that just to be a shocking statement to them, to try and get them to think about, oh my goodness, what are we doing here? Third, it appears, as we read through this, that these two daughters were betrothed to men of Sodom already. And as betrothed women, they would have been considered the wives of these men, regardless of the fact that the marriage had not been consummated physically yet, because as Lot said, they have not yet known a man. So they had not yet physically moved in with their prospective husbands. But certainly he would have maybe considered the fact that because they were betrothed, really the offer was almost nonsensical because his daughters would be safe. They were betrothed women. And finally, in his desperation, Lot may have simply been trying to choose between the lesser of two evils. And we have to remember that in the culture of Lot, and even moving forward, we'll see in the Old Testament, homosexuality was a sin punishable by death. The homosexual was not accepted in the community of Israel. And so perhaps Lot thought it would be better to allow a heterosexual rape rather than a homosexual rape. I don't know. I'm not Lot, and I wasn't there, but again, it would be easy to be very judgmental and very harsh in looking at what Lot was offering the men of Sodom in order to try and dissuade them from sexually assaulting his own guests. I'm glad I haven't ever been put into that position, and I think all of us should be equally glad that we have not ever been put into such a position. But the response of the men of Sodom is clear. They will have their way. The outburst that they have, stand back. And I've mentioned this before in other studies and in sermons that I've preached. One of the things that I always look for in Scripture are those imperative commands, those imperative verbs. In the Greek, they appear far more often in the New Testament. They are very rare in the Old Testament. This is one of those places where the men of Sodom, the form of the language they use leaves no doubt. This is a command. They're going to have their way. And they even tell Lot, who do you think you are? You who've come here to sojourn from us. And basically they're saying, you're an alien among us. You're not even of us. You're not even one of us. Who are you to tell us whether or not we should have these men or not? You have no place, no position, no power, no authority to dictate to us what we want, is essentially what the men are saying. And they begin to press in against Lot in such a way, and you hear the phrase again, we have now determined we're going to do worse to you than what we were going to do to them. Remember, I told you this was a dangerous situation that Lot was facing. This was not something to just be shrugged off or laughed off. Lot was in a position where he himself could be the victim of sexual assault, certainly could have been beaten, perhaps even killed. This is not something to just laugh off. Lot is in a desperate position at this point. Without intervention, Lot would have been damaged, injured, hurt, perhaps murdered. But that's exactly when God directs the angelic messengers to intervene. And they reach out from the house, they pull Lot back in, and they shut the door. And before the men can have a chance to break the door down, the men are struck with blindness. Now they can't even find the door, let alone try to break it down. The sin of Sodom has been clearly revealed. There's no way around it now. It was known by reputation to Abraham, which is why he intervened with the Lord, knowing that his own nephew lived there, not perhaps suspecting that Lot was engaged in the same sin, because he was appealing, remember, to God's sense of justice, that he would not destroy the city if there were righteous people present. But also probably suspecting that there might not be that many righteous people there, which is why Abraham went through the negotiations, if you remember, from 50 to 45 to 40 to 30 to 20 to 10. Lot certainly knew the sins of the city where he lived. Why else would he have intervened so quickly when the angelic messengers arrived to try to pull them into his house, pull them into a place of safety? And the Lord certainly already knew the sins of Sodom and of Gomorrah. As I said, and I don't say any of this to demean anyone. I know this can seem like a very harsh message, especially to those who even today are caught in the trap of homosexual behavior and the homosexual lifestyle. And I'm not saying this to belittle or to degrade in any way, shape, or form. But it is a sin. It is a sin that God here is going to judge. And just as with any other sin, God will judge. The men of Sodom had a choice. They could have ignored the men. They could have accepted Lot's offer of his daughters. Not that that would have been a good choice. But they chose to try to fulfill their own desires. And as a result, their actions are going to be judged, as we'll see next week. Now, again, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that, there's a heart that ought to beat within each and every one of us for anybody who's caught in a sinful lifestyle, to seek their heart in a way that will allow us to inform them of the love that Jesus has for them, even as they are, and the desire that Jesus has for them to come into a relationship with him. We have to be very careful when we approach people that are caught up in this type of lifestyle, because we start, if we're not careful, judging them. That's not what we're called to do. Let's love the people that we are brought into contact with, so that we might have an opportunity to share Jesus with them. Judgment is coming, but also remember there's mercy and grace that God is still offering. And let's not forget that. So God bless you. Father, as we come to you this day, we do again. Thank you, Father, for your love for us, for your care for us, for your concern for us, for all of us, Lord. All of us are sinners in need of salvation. None of us have a clear conscience. And while our sin may not be the sin of Sodom, we still have sins that we must be held accountable for, or that we must plead under the blood of Christ. So Lord, help us to be the ones that would share the message of love and salvation and forgiveness that you offer to any and all that we come into contact with. Let us not be judgmental because their sin is differing from ours. But let us rather, Lord, treat each and every person with respect and with compassion. So help us in that, Lord, I ask. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you. I hope to see you next week. We will be looking at the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah next week. It, again, is not an easy chapter to go through. This is a difficult passage in dealing with the destruction of entire cities because of the sin of the majority of the city. So stay with us, and we'll deal with those issues as honestly as we can next week. God bless you again. I hope you have a good day today.